Marcus Brennan's hands trembled as he slipped the loaf into his worn coat. The bread was still warm from the oven, and he could feel its heat against his ribs like an accusation. Through the bakery window, he saw his 3 children huddled in the wagon outside, their thin faces pressed against the cold November air. The bakery smelled like heaven, yeast and butter and cinnamon mixed with wood smoke from the ovens. Golden lamplight made the space glow against the coming darkness. Marcus had been pretending to browse for 10 minutes, watching other families buy bread like it was nothing, like they belonged to a world he'd fallen out of. Louise Whitmore stood behind the counter, wiping flour from her hands. She was maybe 40, with steel-gray hair pulled back tight and eyes that missed nothing. She'd been serving customers all evening, her movements efficient and kind. Now the last customer had gone, and she was preparing to close. Marcus's heart hammered. His children hadn't eaten anything but thin soup in 2 days. Emma was 7, Thomas 5, baby Grace only 2. They needed food. They needed their father to provide. He was failing them with every breath. He moved toward the door, the stolen loaf hidden beneath his coat. Put it back. Louise's voice cut through the warm air like a knife through butter. Firm, certain. Not cruel, but absolutely unyielding. Marcus froze. Shame flooded his body so completely he couldn't breathe. He turned slowly, his face burning, his hands shaking worse than ever. He'd been caught. His children would see the sheriff take him. They'd end up in an orphanage or scattered to whoever would take them. "I'm sorry," he whispered. The words felt like broken glass in his throat. Louise studied him. Her eyes moved from his gaunt face to his trembling hands to the bulge under his coat. She didn't call for the law. She didn't even look angry. She looked like she was solving a problem, the way you'd study a broken wagon wheel to figure out how to fix it. "How many children?" she asked. The question stunned him. Not why did you steal? Not what kind of man are you? Just how many children? 3. Marcus managed. His voice cracked. "My wife died last month. I lost my farm to debt. They haven't eaten in 2 days. Louise nodded slowly. She walked to the counter and wrapped a fresh loaf in brown paper. Then she came around and stood in front of him. She was shorter than him, but somehow seemed larger. Like bedrock you could build on. "Put that one back," she said, pointing to his coat. "Take this one instead." Marcus's hands shook as he obeyed. He pulled the stolen loaf out and set it on the nearest table. Louise pressed the wrapped loaf into his hands. "Now listen carefully," she said. "You'll arrive here tomorrow at 4 in the morning. You'll help me with the baking until noon. I'll pay you in bread, flour, and whatever you can carry home each day. After 2 months, we'll discuss wages." Marcus stared at her. His mind couldn't process what she was saying. It sounded like mercy, and mercy wasn't something he deserved. "I don't deserve your kindness," he said. Tears burned his eyes. Louise's expression softened just slightly. "Deserving has nothing to do with it. Everyone needs a second chance." She paused. "What are their names? Your children?" "Emma, Thomas, Grace. 4 people are counting on you arriving at 4 in the morning," Louise said. "Don't let them down." She handed him 2 more loaves and a small sack of flour. Then she walked to the door and opened it, letting in the cold November wind. Marcus walked past her into the darkness behind him. The bakery glowed like a lantern. Ahead, his children waited. He didn't understand what had just happened, but his arms were full of bread. And tomorrow he had work. The door closed softly behind him. Marcus couldn't sleep. He lay on the thin mattress in their rented room above the stable, listening to his children breathe. Emma snored softly. Thomas mumbled in his dreams. Grace's breathing was steady and peaceful. Her small body curled against Emma's back. They'd eaten the bread like it was a feast. Emma had cried while she ate, and Marcus had pretended not to notice. Thomas had asked if they could have bread again tomorrow, his voice small and hopeful. Grace had simply smiled, her face smeared with crumbs. Now Marcus stared at the ceiling, watching shadows move across the cracked plaster. He kept thinking about Louise's face. She hadn't looked at him like he was garbage. She hadn't looked at him with pity either. She'd looked at him like he was a problem she could solve, and that was somehow more terrifying than contempt. At 3:30, he gave up on sleep. He washed his face in cold water from the basin and put on his cleanest shirt. It was patched at the elbows, but it was all he had. Then he walked through the dark streets of Redemption Ridge toward the bakery. The town was silent. No lights showed in any windows except one. Louise's bakery glowed against the darkness like a promise. Marcus stopped outside, through the window. He could see Louise already working. She moved efficiently between the long wooden table and the ovens, her hands shaping dough with practiced rhythm. Flour dusted her apron. Her hair was pulled back under a kerchief. She looked solid, capable, like someone who knew exactly who she was. Marcus's hand touched the door handle. He couldn't make himself push it open. If he went inside, he was admitting he needed help. He was admitting he'd failed as a father, as a farmer, as a man. He was putting his shame on display for this woman to see every morning. The thought made his stomach twist. But if he didn't go inside, his children went hungry. He pushed the door open. Louise looked up and nodded once, unsurprised. "You're early. Good. Wash your hands at that basin and put on that apron." She pointed to a hook by the door where a clean apron hung waiting. Marcus obeyed. The water was warm. Someone had heated it. The small kindness made his throat tight. "You ever make bread?" Louise asked. "My wife did. I helped sometimes." "Then you know the basics." She gestured him to the table. "Knead this dough. Fold and push. Fold and push. Rhythm matters more than strength." Marcus pressed his hands into the dough. It was soft and alive under his palms, still rising. The repetitive motion felt good. His body remembered this, even if his mind was spinning. Louise worked beside him in silence for several minutes. Then she spoke quietly. "How long were you married?" 10 years. Sarah was 17 when we wed. I was 19. "And the farm?" "Wheat? Had 200 acres. Last year's drought killed half the crop. This year there wasn't enough money for seed." His voice stayed level. He'd told this story to the bank, to the land office, to the men who'd bought his equipment for pennies. Sarah got sick during the worst of it. Fever took her in 3 days. Louise nodded. She didn't offer empty comfort. She just listened while her hands shaped perfect loaves. Losing the farm after she died felt like losing her twice. Marcus continued. He didn't know why he was talking. Maybe because Louise didn't look at him while he spoke. Maybe because her hands kept working, steady and sure. Like I couldn't even keep the place where she'd lived, where we'd been happy. "You lost everything," Louise said. It wasn't a question. "Everything that mattered." Louise was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "Your hands remember hard work. They'll remember this too." She showed him how to shape the loaves, how to test the oven temperature with his hand, how to know when the bread was ready by sound and smell. She explained timing and temperature like they were laws of nature, immutable and true. As dawn broke through the windows, Marcus realized he'd been working for 2 hours and hadn't thought about shame once. His hands were covered in flour, his back ached pleasantly, and he was making something. "That's enough for today," Louise said. "Take those." She pointed to 2 sacks of flour and a basket of day-old bread. 4 in the morning tomorrow. Marcus lifted the sacks. They were heavy with promise. "Thank you," he said. Louise met his eyes. "Thank me by showing up." Marcus walked out into the dawn carrying more than flour. The first week passed in a rhythm older than words. Darkness, dawn, dough rising, ovens burning, the smell of bread filling the world. Marcus arrived at 4 every morning. Louise was always there first, lamplight making the bakery windows glow like a beacon. They worked side by side, speaking only when necessary. She taught him the craft with patient precision, never mentioning the theft, never treating him like charity. His hands grew confident. The trembling stopped. His body remembered competence even while his mind struggled to believe in it. On Saturday morning of the second week, Louise said something that changed everything. "Bring your children tomorrow. Emma can learn to braid bread while you work." Marcus looked up sharply. "I couldn't impose. You're not imposing. I'm inviting." Louise's voice was firm. "A child who wants to learn should be taught." Sunday morning arrived cold and clear. Marcus bundled the children into the wagon before dawn. Emma was nervous and excited, her small hands twisting in her coat. Thomas asked 100 questions. Grace simply smiled, her round face peaceful. The bakery was already warm when they arrived. Louise greeted the children like they were expected guests. Not an inconvenience. "Emma, is it?" She smiled at the girl. "Come here. Let me show you something beautiful." And she led Emma to the table and showed her how to divide dough into 3 strands. "Now, watch. Over, under, over, under. You're making something that will feed people. That matters." Emma's face glowed with concentration. Her small hands moved carefully, mimicking Louise's movements. Thomas watched, fascinated, while Grace toddled around exploring, staying close to the warm ovens. Marcus worked and watched. He saw Louise's face transform when Emma succeeded in braiding her first loaf. He heard her laugh when Thomas asked if he could eat the raw dough. He watched her scoop Grace up when the baby stumbled, holding her gently while she stirred a pot of honey butter. It hurt to watch. Sarah used to braid bread just like that. Sarah used to laugh just like that. The memory was a blade under his ribs, but it was also healing. For the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus saw his children genuinely happy. Emma's smile was real. Thomas's laughter wasn't forced. Grace reached for Louise like she was family. "Your children are lovely," Louise said quietly during a moment when the children were occupied. "Full of life. They look like their mother. Tell me about her." So Marcus did. He told Louise about Sarah's laugh, about how she sang while she worked, about her garden that always bloomed even in drought years. He told her about the way Sarah had held their children, about her fierce love and gentle strength. Louise listened. When he finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I had a child once, stillborn. My husband died 2 years later in a logging accident. I bought this bakery with his savings and built it into something that mattered." She looked at the children. "Your children's laughter reminds me what I'm working for. Community isn't just bread. It's this. Sharing warmth." Marcus understood then. Louise wasn't just being kind. She was lonely too. She needed them as much as they needed her. "Thank you," he said, "for all of this." Louise shook her head. "Thank me by coming back." That night, after the children were asleep, Marcus sat alone in the dark. He whispered Sarah's name into the silence. "I think we're going to be all right." He told her ghost, "I think we might survive this." And for the first time in months, he believed it. The rhythm continued. Dawn, work, bread, home. Marcus's body grew stronger. His hands shaped dough with increasing skill. The children came every Saturday, and the bakery filled with life. By the 3rd week, Marcus felt almost steady, almost normal, almost like a man with a future instead of just a past. Then Reverend Clayton came to visit. Marcus was cleaning the ovens when the Reverend arrived Tuesday afternoon. Louise was at the counter, and Marcus heard their conversation through the doorway. "Louise, I wanted to speak with you about your new helper." The Reverend's voice was kind but concerned. "The town is talking. Let them talk," Louise said calmly. "People are worried you're being too trusting. The man was caught stealing. The man was feeding his starving children. There's a difference. Perhaps. But wisdom requires caution. You're a woman alone. Your reputation. My reputation is built on 30 years of honest work. Louise interrupted. I'll stake it on my own judgment. The Reverend sighed. I'm only trying to help. Then trust me. Marcus is a good man who hit hard times. That's all. After the Reverend left, Louise seemed troubled. She worked in silence. Her usual warmth dimmed. Marcus felt shame creeping back, cold and familiar. That evening, walking to the wagon, he overheard Mrs. Henderson talking to another woman outside the general store. That baker woman is too soft, Mrs. Henderson said. A thief's a thief. I don't care how many children he has. The other woman agreed. She'll learn. Kindness like that gets taken advantage of. Marcus's hands clenched. He kept walking, but the words followed him home. The next morning, he arrived at 4 as always. Louise greeted him normally, but he felt different. Every loaf he shaped felt like a burden he was placing on her shoulders. Every hour he worked felt like a debt he was adding to her ledger. You're quiet today, Louise said around 6, thinking about... Marcus hesitated. Then he said, about what people are saying, about your reputation. Louise's hands stilled. She looked at him directly. I don't care what people say. You should. You've built something here. You shouldn't risk it for me. I'm not risking anything, Louise said firmly. I'm making a choice. There's a difference. But Marcus saw the tightness around her eyes. She did care. She was just too proud to admit it. Later that week, a town council member stopped by. Marcus was in the back, but he heard the conversation. Just a friendly word. Louise, some of our citizens are concerned about your business practices. We'd hate to see you lose customers over this. Are you threatening me? Mr. Walsh. Not at all. Just sharing community sentiment. People want to support businesses that reflect their values. After Mr. Walsh left, Louise stood very still for a long moment. Then she went back to work, her movements sharp and precise. Marcus felt something crumble inside him. He was poison. Everything he touched turned to trouble. Sarah had died. The farm had failed. And now he was destroying the one person who'd shown him kindness. That night, he made a decision. He would leave Redemption Ridge. He would find work somewhere else, somewhere his past couldn't follow. It was the kindest thing he could do for Louise. He wrote her a letter thanking her for everything. He'd leave it on the bakery doorstep before dawn and be gone before she found it. His children would understand eventually. They'd see he was protecting the only person who'd helped them. Marcus packed their few belongings in silence, his heart breaking with every fold of worn fabric. Emma found the letter. Marcus had set it on the small table, planning to slip out while the children slept. But Emma woke early, drawn by some instinct that her father was in trouble. She read it slowly, her lips moving with the words. Then she woke Thomas. Papa's leaving, she whispered, her voice tight with panic. Thomas sat up, rubbing his eyes. What? He wrote Miss Louise a letter. He's going to leave her, leave the bakery, leave everything. Tears streamed down Emma's face. We can't let him... Marcus was loading the wagon when both children confronted him in the stable yard. Dawn was still an hour away. The world was dark and cold. Papa, no, Emma said. She held the letter in her shaking hands. You can't. Emma, sweetheart, you don't understand. I understand you're running away. Thomas interrupted. His young voice was fierce. Like you ran away from the farm. The words hit Marcus like a fist. Thomas. Miss Louise needs us, Emma said. Tears made her voice thick. She's lonely. Papa. She smiles when we're there. She teaches me things. She's like, Emma couldn't finish. She's family, Thomas said quietly. And you're going to leave her just like you left Mama's grave. Marcus's legs nearly gave out. He sat down hard on the wagon step. I'm trying to protect her. The town is talking. I'm hurting her reputation. You're hurting her by leaving, Emma said. She sat beside him and took his hand. She chose us, Papa. She chose to help. Don't make that choice wrong by running away. Marcus looked at his children. Emma's fierce, tear-stained face, Thomas's stubborn jaw, even Grace, awake now, watching him with solemn eyes. What if I can't fix this? He whispered. You can't fix anything by running, Emma said. Mama wouldn't run. Miss Louise wouldn't run, so we don't run either. Marcus pulled his children close. They huddled together in the cold darkness, and Marcus felt something shift in his chest, fear giving way to something fiercer, something like courage. All right, he said. All right. We stay. At 4 a.m, Marcus walked into the bakery expecting Louise to be surprised. Instead, she was waiting for him, her arms crossed, her expression knowing. You thought about leaving, she said. Not a question. Marcus nodded, shame flooding his face. Louise walked over and stood in front of him. I thought about it too. After my husband died, after I lost the baby, I thought about leaving this whole town. Starting over somewhere nobody knew me. She paused. Running doesn't end the pain, Marcus. It just spreads it to new places. The town council can bake their own bread if they don't like my business practices, Louise said sharply. I choose who I work with. I choose who I trust. And I choose you. Marcus's throat closed. Why? Because I see what you are. Not what you did one desperate evening, but what you are. A father who loves his children. A man who shows up every morning. A human being trying to rebuild from ashes. Louise's voice softened. Stay, Marcus. Fight for your place here. You've earned it with every loaf, every dawn arrival, every honest day. Marcus felt tears burn his eyes. I don't know how to fight anymore. Yes, you do. You just forgot. Louise handed him an apron. Now get to work. The harvest festival is in 2 weeks, and we have a lot of bread to make. Marcus tied on the apron. His hands still trembled, but not from fear, from something closer to hope. Outside, the first light touched the horizon. Inside, the ovens warmed, and Marcus Brennan decided to stop running. The days leading to the harvest festival were the hardest Marcus had known since Sarah's death. Not physically hard, the work was demanding, but satisfying. Emotionally hard. Every day brought small confrontations with the town's judgment. Mrs. Henderson stopped buying bread. She made a point of walking past the bakery to purchase from the general store instead, where they sold stale loaves shipped from the next county. 2 other families followed her lead. Children whispered when Emma walked by. Someone told Thomas his father was a criminal. Grace was too young to understand. But Marcus saw Emma's protective fury when other kids excluded them. At church Sunday, the Brennans sat alone. People who'd once nodded politely now looked away. Reverend Clayton's sermon seemed pointed, full of warnings about the consequences of poor judgment and the importance of protecting community standards. Louise sat with them. When the sermon ended, she stood and walked out with her head high. The Brennans following. Her message was clear. Judge them. Judge me. We're together. But the cost was real. By the 4th week, Louise's business had dropped by 1/3. The bakery that used to be packed now had long stretches of silence. Marcus watched Louise count receipts with a tight expression. I'm destroying everything you built, he said one morning. You're not destroying anything. Small minds are... Louise's voice was hard. They'll come around. And what if they don't? Then I'll bake for the people who have sense. But Marcus saw the worry in her eyes. The bakery was her livelihood. If she lost it defending him, she'd have nothing, and it would be his fault. The whispers grew louder. Marcus heard fragments walking through town. Should have called the sheriff. Taking advantage of her kindness. Once a thief, always a thief. One afternoon, Marcus was making a delivery when he passed 3 men talking outside the saloon. One of them was Mr. Walsh from the town council. "It's a shame," Walsh said. "Louise was a respected businesswoman. Now she's just foolish." Another man laughed. "Women get soft-hearted, can't think straight when they feel sorry for someone." The third man spat tobacco juice. "Mark my words, that drifter will rob her blind and disappear. And she'll have no one to blame but herself." Marcus kept walking. Each word was a stone in his chest. That night, he couldn't sleep. He paced the small room while his children slept, wrestling with demons. Every instinct screamed at him to leave, to spare Louise further damage, to save his children from being outcasts. But Emma's words echoed. Mama wouldn't run. Miss Louise wouldn't run. Sarah wouldn't have run. Sarah had faced drought and debt and death itself without flinching. She'd have stood her ground and made the town see reason through sheer force of dignity. Could he do the same? The next morning, Marcus arrived at 4 to find Louise already working. Her face looked tired. The worry lines around her eyes had deepened. "Louise," he said carefully, "the harvest festival, maybe I shouldn't come. Maybe it would be better if—" Louise slammed a pan down so hard it rang. "Don't you dare." Marcus stopped. "I have fought for this," Louise said, her voice shaking. "For you, for your children, for the principle that people deserve second chances. Don't you dare suggest hiding like we've done something wrong. But your business will recover or it won't. Either way, I'll know I stood for what matters." She turned to face him fully. "The harvest festival is in 1 week. You and I are going to prepare enough bread to feed half the county. We're going to serve it together. And anyone who has a problem with that can choke on their own judgment." Marcus stared at her. Louise's eyes blazed with something fierce and unbreakable. "Stay, Marcus," she said quietly. "Fight for your place here. Let them judge the man you are, not the man you were one desperate evening." Marcus felt something unlock in his chest, fear giving way to determination. "All right," he said. "We fight." Louise nodded once, then she handed him a bowl of dough. "Good. Now let's make enough bread to feed an army the week before the festival." Marcus and Louise worked from 3 in the morning until midnight. The bakery became a factory of flour and faith, producing hundreds of loaves for the community feast. Marcus's children helped when they could. Emma shaped rolls with fierce concentration. Thomas wrapped loaves in cloth. Even Grace contributed, her small hands patting dough into uneven lumps that Louise baked anyway, calling them Grace's special biscuits. The work was exhausting and exhilarating. Marcus felt his body grow stronger, his confidence expand. His hands shaped perfect loaves now, identical to Louise's. His timing was precise. His bread tasted like it had been made by someone who cared. On Tuesday, Mrs. Henderson came into the bakery. Marcus was in the back but heard her voice. "Louise, I wanted to speak with you." "I'm listening." Louise's tone was neutral. "I've been thinking about what you said, about second chances." Mrs. Henderson paused. "I've been watching that man work, every morning. His wagon is outside before dawn. He never misses a day." Louise didn't respond. "My husband made mistakes when he was young." Mrs. Henderson continued quietly. "If the town had judged him forever on those mistakes, we'd never have had our life together." Another pause. "I was wrong. I'd like to buy bread again." Marcus heard the rustle of paper, the clink of coins. "Tell Marcus I said he's a good father." Mrs. Henderson added, "His children are lucky." After she left, Louise came to the back room. She didn't say anything, just met Marcus's eyes and nodded. It was a start. Wednesday brought more customers. Not everyone, but some. People who'd been watching, weighing, deciding. They came in quietly, bought bread, left without comment. But they came. Thursday morning. Reverend Clayton arrived early. Marcus tensed, expecting another lecture. Instead, the Reverend addressed them both. I spoke with Emma's teacher, he said. She tells me Emma is the brightest student she's ever taught. Says the girl is determined to learn because her father teaches her that honest work matters. He looked at Marcus. I was wrong to judge you on one act of desperation. I apologize. Marcus couldn't speak. He nodded. The church will be serving your bread at the festival, Reverend Clayton said to Louise. All of it. We'll be honored to share what you've made. After he left, Marcus sat down hard. Louise placed a hand on his shoulder. See, she said quietly. People can learn. Community can heal. Friday arrived, the last day of preparation. Marcus and Louise worked in companionable silence. Their movements synchronized like dancers who knew every step. The bakery smelled like heaven. Loaves cooled on every surface, golden and perfect. That evening, as they finished the last batch, Louise turned to Marcus. I have a proposal, she said. Marcus looked up. I want to make you a partner. Equal wages, equal say in the business. She met his eyes. This isn't charity. Marcus, you've earned this. Your work is as good as mine. Your dedication is flawless. And she paused. I trust you. Marcus felt his eyes burn. Louise, don't answer now. Think about it. We'll talk after the festival. But Marcus didn't need to think. For the first time since Sarah's death, he knew exactly what he wanted. Yes, he said. Yes, I accept. Louise smiled. A real smile that reached her eyes and made her look 10 years younger. Then let's show this town what partnership looks like, she said. Outside. The sun set in shades of gold. Inside, two people who'd been broken built something whole. The harvest festival arrived on a perfect November morning, cold and clear, with brilliant blue sky and golden light that made everything sharp and beautiful. Marcus and Louise loaded their wagon before dawn, hundreds of loaves, carefully wrapped, rolls and biscuits and braided bread, Emma's carefully shaped offerings, Grace's lumpy biscuits, everything they'd made together. The festival was held in the town square. Tables lined the perimeter, laden with food from every family. There'd be music and dancing, prayer and thanksgiving. The whole county would attend. Marcus helped Louise set up their table. His hands were steady. His heart was calm. Whatever happened today, he'd face it standing up. The crowd gathered slowly. Families arriving in wagons, children running and playing. The smell of roasting meat and fresh bread filled the air. People noticed Marcus and Louise working together. Conversations quieted. Eyes watched. Reverend Clayton opened the festival with a prayer, thanking God for harvest and community and second chances. His eyes found Marcus during the last part, and he nodded. Then the feast began. Louise stood beside their table and raised her voice. Friends, this bread was made with help from my new partner, Marcus Brennan. We're proud to share it with you. The word partner rang across the square. Some faces showed surprise. Others showed approval. A few showed continued disapproval, but fewer than Marcus expected. Mrs. Henderson approached first. I'd like a loaf of your honey wheat, she said clearly. Then she turned to Marcus. I've watched you work. Mr. Brennan, you arrive before dawn every day. You never miss. That's character. She spoke loud enough for others to hear. Several people glanced at each other. Then more customers approached. Slowly at first, then steadily. They bought bread and thanked Louise and greeted Marcus with varying degrees of warmth. But they came. Emma stood beside Marcus, beaming with pride. See, Papa, Miss Louise was right. Thomas tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Papa, people are smiling at us. Even Grace seemed to sense the shift. She toddled around, offering her misshapen biscuits to anyone who'd take them, and people accepted them with genuine kindness. By noon, their table was nearly empty. Louise's bread had fed half the county. People sat in groups, eating and laughing, the bread breaking and sharing like communion. Marcus watched the scene with a tight throat. 6 weeks ago, he'd been stealing bread in darkness. Now he stood in sunlight, feeding his community through honest work. A young man approached hesitantly. He was thin, his clothes worn, his face anxious. "Excuse me," he said to Marcus quietly. "I heard you were hiring." Marcus glanced at Louise. She nodded. "We might be." Marcus said, "Do you need work?" The young man nodded. "I've got 2 kids. Lost my job at the mill. I'm desperate." Marcus saw himself in the man's eyes. That same hollow fear. That same shame. "What's your name?" Marcus asked. "Daniel? Daniel Cooper?" Marcus smiled. "Tell you what, Daniel, come to the bakery Monday morning at 4. We'll see if you've got the hands for this work." He paused. "Bring your children. My daughter can teach them to braid bread." Daniel's eyes filled with tears. "Thank you. I won't let you down. I know you won't." After Daniel left, Louise took Marcus's hand briefly. "You see," she said softly. Healed people heal people. As the sun set on the festival, Marcus stood with his children and Louise, watching their community celebrate. The bread they'd made together had fed hundreds. The work they'd done together had rebuilt more than Marcus's life, it had rebuilt faith. Emma leaned against his side. "Papa, this is the best day." Marcus wrapped his arm around her. "Yes, sweetheart, it is." And for the first time since Sarah's death, Marcus felt whole. 2 months to the day after Marcus had stolen bread, Louise opened the bakery to find him already waiting. The first snow of winter was falling, soft and silent, transforming Redemption Ridge into something clean and new. "You're early," she said, smiling. "Couldn't sleep," Marcus admitted. "Today's the day we discuss wages." They went inside together. The bakery was warm, the ovens already heating. Emma was with them. She came every day now, learning the craft alongside her father. Thomas helped with afternoon deliveries. Grace spent mornings playing near the warm ovens, supervised by whoever had a free hand. Louise poured coffee and sat across from Marcus at the work table. Emma was in the back, gathering supplies. "I've been thinking," Louise said, "about partnership." "You already made me a partner," Marcus said, confused. "Half partner. I'm proposing full partnership. Equal ownership." Louise slid a paper across the table. "Marcus and Louise's bakery. Equal shares. Equal say. Equal everything." Marcus stared at the document. His name, written beside Louise's, making something official and permanent. "I can't accept this," he said. "It's too much." "It's exactly right," Louise corrected. "You've earned this. Marcus, your work is flawless. Your dedication is absolute. And more than that, you've helped me build something bigger than bread. You've helped me build family." Emma came back into the room carrying flour. She stopped when she saw them talking seriously. "What's happening?" "Louise wants to make me a full partner," Marcus said. Emma's face lit up. "Papa, that's wonderful!" "But no buts," Louise interrupted. "Sign the paper. Marcus." "Let's make this official." Marcus looked at the document, his name beside Louise's. The bakery that had saved his life becoming permanently his to build and protect and grow. He signed. Emma cheered. Louise smiled, and Marcus felt the last piece of his broken heart click into place. The morning passed in their usual rhythm, work and warmth and the smell of rising bread. Customers came steadily. Now the bakery had regained all its lost business and more. People trusted Louise's judgment, and they'd seen Marcus prove himself. Around 10, the door opened and a man entered. He was maybe 30, gaunt and hollow-eyed, with clothes that had seen better days. He browsed the bread with the careful movements of someone pretending not to be desperate. Marcus knew that look. He'd worn it himself. The man glanced at the door. His hand moved toward a loaf. "Can I help you?" Marcus said gently. The man froze. Shame flooded his face. I have money." He didn't have money. That was obvious. Marcus walked over and wrapped a warm loaf in paper. He handed it to the man. "Take it." "I can't." "You can," Marcus said firmly. "And if you need work, come back tomorrow morning at 4. We might have something for you." The man stared at Marcus. "Why would you help me? Because someone helped me once." Marcus met his eyes. "Everyone deserves a second chance. That's what bread teaches us. It's meant to be broken and shared." The man took the loaf with trembling hands. "Tomorrow morning, 4 o'clock. I'll be here." "I'll be waiting," Marcus said, after the man left. Louise came to stand beside Marcus. She'd been watching the whole exchange. "You're going to do it, aren't you?" she said. "Keep extending the same grace I gave you." "Someone has to," Marcus said. "Might as well be someone who knows what it's like to need it." Louise squeezed his shoulder. "Your wife would be proud." Marcus thought of Sarah. Her fierce love and gentle strength. Her belief that people were worth saving. He'd lost her. But he'd found her values again in this work, in this community, in this second chance. "I think she would," he agreed. That evening, after the children were in bed, Marcus stood outside their new home. Louise had helped him rent a small house near the bakery, 2 bedrooms, a kitchen, a yard where Grace could play. Nothing grand, but theirs. The first snow was still falling, silent and peaceful. Marcus watched it transform the world into something clean. He thought about the journey from that desperate November evening to this peaceful December night. From thief to partner, from broken to healing, from isolated to belonging. The bakery glowed in the distance, warm light against the snow. Inside, tomorrow's dough was already rising. At 4 in the morning, Marcus would return. He'd work beside Louise, teach Emma, eventually train the new man who'd come desperate and leave with hope. The cycle would continue. Grace given and received. Community built one loaf at a time. Marcus smiled and went inside. His children were sleeping peacefully. His hands smelled like bread. And tomorrow, like every tomorrow, now held promise instead of fear. He was home.